Where'd everybody go? I guess probably out to get a double-double animal style. I know we're the last thing between you guys and lunch, so we're gonna be impactful and efficient with time. My name is Tom Whiteaker. I'm a partner with IBM Ventures, and I'm super excited for this panel to feature two of our star portfolio companies from our $500 million enterprise AI fund. What I can say about this panel is, as a venture investor for 25 years, I've worked with some amazing founders. And I think what you're going to see is we have two of the best on the stage with me. So I'm honored to be here. To kick things off, I'm going to read their bios real quick because I know they're too humble to tell you everything that's in there. And then I'm going to turn it over to them and let them tell you about their companies and their passion behind their companies. So I'm going to start with Steve. Stephen Aberle is the CEO and founder of Rohirrim, a company specializing in domain-aware generative AI solutions for enterprises. That's a very key point. As the founder and developer of Rohirrim, he invented and patented the first domain-aware generative AI solution for enterprises. Stephen is an AI researcher and entrepreneur with expertise in LLMs, transformers, and generative AI. Throughout his career, he has worked on complex technical architectures for large organizations, including with some of the largest collections of documents in the world at Los Alamos National Laboratories. In addition to his role at Rohirrim, in his free time, Stephen is a member of the Forbes Technology Council, contributing insights on advancements in the computer software industry. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next for Justin. Justin goes by Goju, as you can see up there. He's the founder, CEO, and chief scientist of Merly, a company aimed at redefining the very fabric of software development using state-of-the-art machine programming systems. In his spare time, he's also a professor at Stanford, where he researches and teaches graduate-level machine programming and AI. He first learned to design and implement large-scale software when he created his first startup at the age of 25, writing millions of lines of C++ code. I bet you wish you had Merly back then. Yeah.
100%.
Makes my hands sweat. Millions of lines of
It's like 100 times faster.
And this is the impressive part. He has over 45 peer-reviewed publications and more than 100 issued patents. Stephen has a few himself, but not quite 100.
That's all right. It's not a competition, kind of.
Yeah.
Stephen's been doing the real work.
Goju has been highlighted in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, MIT Tech Review, amongst others. And another thing he does in his free time, and I encourage you to check it out, is he has a YouTube channel, Goju Tech Talks, where he discusses various topics related to machine programming and software development. So, welcome, Goju.
Thanks for the plug. And my co-host, Taylor, is here as well.
Yeah.
Please visit the YouTube channel.
And they do that all hours, so that it's actually both very informative and comical, so I would encourage you to check it out. So with that, Stephen, why don't we turn it over to you? I'll let you give the elevator pitch on Rohirrim, and we'll go from there.
I think it's good. And one of the first things I like to do, and if I've talked to you throughout the last couple of days in the room, and you've heard the story, you're going to get it again, which is okay. But I'm Steve Aberle, CEO and founder. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it, Tom. Before I started the company Rohirrim, I ran AI at the National Laboratories for the weapons program at Los Alamos. And that sounds like a fantastic job. And people kind of equate that to wearing a white lab coat and I'm running around dodging radiation. But it wasn't like that at all. The higher you kind of get up in your career, either it's in academia or working at the national labs, the more of your day really becomes about these things called grants. and RFPs. And that was brutal for me, absolutely brutal. The number of nights and weekends I spent, I did not go to school to master the English vernacular. I went to school to learn how to code. But the more of my day, I found myself just being sucked up and subsumed by writing these RFP responses. It got to such a point in my career, it was so difficult to do these things, that in about 2018, 2019, when I was first introduced to the world of transformers and how radical of a change that was to natural language processing, I thought that language models and transformers could be an answer to the problem set, which is best described as a vertical problem set. So even very early on, at the beginnings of Rohirrim, at the beginnings of the company, what we wanted to do was build a vertical application that solved a difficult business problem that was tied to revenue, a mission-critical revenue problem for very large enterprises. RFPs, requests for proposals, proposal documents, sales documents, are kind of a mission-critical aspect. And so we began building a workflow system and domain-aware generative AI to bring tremendous efficiencies into how large enterprises respond and put teams together to win government work or win proposal work or sales work. And that was our first foray. That scaled very quickly. And then about a year ago, the government asked us to build the sister system, which we call Rohirrim, for the defense and government side to bring efficiencies into the way that they procure technology and services. And so there's two sides of the business, both on the commercial, which is the seller side, and the buyer side, the government side.
Impressive. And again, a star portfolio company. And I think when I think about it, it's founder market fit. And I think Stephen explained that very well. Goju, over to you on Merli.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having us here. We love IBM Ventures. There's Emily. So if you don't know Emily, she's superstar. As Stephen was talking, I was learning more about his company, and I'm not sure if IBM had intended this, but there's sort of a natural serendipity, a bifurcation of the two of our companies. Transformers, I think, function very well in the world of natural language, which was sort of their internal, original purpose. Natural language is unstructured and it's often ambiguous. But where transformers struggle a little bit is in the spaces of code, because code is not unstructured and it tends to be significantly less ambiguous. Words have very concrete meanings, like integer or a class. And so one of the things we wanted to do with Merli is really push the field of software development forward. Being someone that, so I think Tom mentioned, I created my first startup when I was 25. It was a video game I created because I love video games. And now 25 years later, I just turned 50. It feels like, okay, now we can try to do larger things. And a lot of it is to improve the state of software development. Very similar to, I feel like, Stephen's journey of the struggles of these RFPs. What I was seeing, and in my former life before Merli, running my research lab at Intel, is there was a difficult time creating a lot of high quality software. It's very easy to write a lot of software that's not high quality, but it's very hard to create things like Linux or Git, which is why you have folks like the Linux Foundation that are, in some sense, one-offs. But I think one of the larger purposes of Merli is, what if we could have a world where everyone could create high-quality software? And so this is our larger charter. And what we have today is a software system. We call it machine programming. It's sort of what I teach at the university. And it will analyze repositories the entire repository over its entire lifetime. For those of you who maybe attended the talk this morning, you can actually run it on commodity hardware, your laptop. You don't need 10,000 GPUs. And it gives you, I think, very interesting insight to help us gradually improve the state of the world, which it seems like we need maybe more help now. There are tremendous advances happening in AI, and I feel like Stephen's stuff in natural language is outstanding. But unfortunately, trying to force transformers into a space that they're not necessarily well aligned for might not be producing the best code. And so our job is maybe to help raise all boats. So with that, I think I'll turn it back to you, Tom.
Yeah, no, I have a question for you on a common theme we've heard about at the conference is security and governance. You're dealing with proposals and very sensitive information. You're dealing with code, the crown jewels. How do you address that with your customers?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So one of our, I'm an accidental CEO, I like to tell people. I had built this prototype for myself at the National Laboratory so I wouldn't have to write proposals in it or grant responses. And one day while I was in the National Laboratories, I had a visitor from one of the very large weapons provider defense and aerospace companies that came in to visit. And looked over my shoulder and was wondering what in the world I was doing. I had this prototype that was running out of a command prompt, and I would type something in it. It would just spit out a bunch of text. And, I said, hey, there's this thing called transformers. They're going to be a big deal. But, what I do is I feed in RFPs and get requirements, and then I use it to predict the best set of text. And what he told me was there's 400 people at our company, and their entire job is to just write RFPs. That's all they do all day long. So I'll give you a big stack of money if you put a user interface on top of this, but it must be secure because we operate inside a regulated environment. So we started out, our first customers sort of demanded that we couldn't necessarily take advantage of all the economies of scale that you get with a SaaS system. We had to deploy as a singular tenant, as a singular platform, and very early on solve the problem of unsupervised entailment theory for small language models. We were one of the first companies that built a very small language model, 9 billion parameters, that was domain aware, domain specific, that could run behind a firewall. And these are the kind of challenges in any regulated environment that you're going to run into, right? These are weapons manufacturers. They're not going to send their data to OpenAI, right? They're
Right.
the crown jewels,
Right.
The blueprints, the schematics for the next generation fighters that they're building, right?
Why wouldn't you want to send it to
wouldn't you want
OpenAI?
to- I think you're going to tell us why, Goju. So we simply just didn't have a choice, right? When you're working with these large enterprises, you are dealing with people who definitely want to use the system and enjoy the efficiencies that bring it, but then you are also talking to the CIOs, no different from IBM.
Right.
IBM utilizes the technology, but has to be done in a very specific way because you're dealing with HIPAA data, you're dealing with CUI, with government data. And so we had to approach it very much from a platform point of view. I don't know, I think that's an important key for you guys is being able to run this on your laptops.
Absolutely.
Crown jewels.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to, I think Stephen said it all. I'm just going to dovetail off of this greatness is working in the space of closed source, creating my first company and having it all be proprietary code. That was sort of our secret sauce. Mm-hmm. And then spending over a decade at Intel, dealing also, for those of you that don't know, almost all hardware derives from software. And so that software is the secret sauce. You don't want anyone to see that software. So being able to work on-prem is extremely important for almost all of the tech companies or defense or government or things of this nature. And I think it's great that we have large language models that can help the world of open source and do small research projects. help people learn. I think they're very effective with sort of these low-hanging fruit type things. But once you start to work sort of on more of these commercial grade systems where security is much more rigorously tightened, having the ability to work completely on-prem is extremely important. And like Stephen, the Merli system, we've invented new ways to do AI. So not just a new model, a new method. So our system is a fully deterministic AI. It's not neural. If you're familiar with neural networks, we have another name for it. We call it DTD, deterministic time dilation. And this is the fundamental sort of invention. There's several that drives the AI system. But also, like Stephen, we have leveraged some of the power of transformers for some of the things that are a bit more stochastic. And we've done a small language model because it also needs to function on-prem. And while we have some big customers that may be creating their own LLMs that they can house on their trillion-dollar budgets, that's great, and we work with them, but we also support the smaller companies or the startups or other folks that need things to be a little bit more locked down. There's one more piece I just feel like I have to add, and mostly it's just to give a nod to my head of product, chief of staff, Taylor, to show sort of the serendipity of all this. And I'm super glad you guys introduced me to Stephen. We were meeting this morning, and I really think we're gonna do business with him just because his stuff is so amazing. And along the same lines of his amazingness, when I started working with Taylor several years ago, one of the things Taylor observed is the Merli system was just looking at code. And Taylor made the observation that we should also look at contributors. And so Taylor, being far smarter than me, I ran home and said, hey, we need to do this. Taylor thinks this is a great idea. Keep in mind, he's previously the head of ecosystem for the Linux Foundation. So when I say smarter than me, much smarter than me. We then integrated this, and one of the things that I think is maybe the most amazing discovery is we were able to identify the XZ-utils exploit for the Linux Foundation before it happened.
Wow.
And a lot of that was we don't just look at code, we also look at anomalous behaviors in contributors. And when you fuse this together, you get really interesting insight into problems that are otherwise invisible. So thank you, Taylor. You're amazing. But back to you guys.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And, you know, I want to shift gears again a little bit just in terms of adoption of your products. A startup world is difficult, and you need to get customers, and they don't always line up around the block. What have been some of the barriers to adoption for you, and how are you overcoming that?
Go ahead, Goju. I'll go second.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief so Stephen has more time. I apologize. I think one of the things that is interesting is sort of just building up the trust. That I think there's, unfortunately, especially in AI, there's a little bit of an oversaturation right now. And not everybody, I think, has the same sort of story, not unintentional entrepreneur. It's very much my story at Stevens. And when you have that environment, it becomes a bit of a money grab, and then people are doing snake oil, and then it makes our lives harder. And so I get it, I understand, but I think probably building up the trust has been one of the hardest challenges for us. And the good news is, with IBM and with some of the others we're working with, Linux Foundation, we're slowly starting to get in front of that.
Yeah, no, thanks for that plug. We have a model in our venture team, we call it Capital Plus. One of the first pluses is credibility. Having IBM on your cap table hopefully helps with that credibility, so appreciate that.
What's credibility? And then IBM is a large company. How many hundreds of thousands of people, right?
A lot, yeah.
So one of the things that transformers and language models give the ability to do, which is far beyond any capability that we had before the advent of of language models is to look across vast amounts of unstructured data and understand that at an enterprise. In an enterprise environment, any company has the ability to create unstructured data much faster than they have to actually professionally manage it. This is the advent of Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and all of the tools that we have to create massive amounts of unstructured data. And so when you're going into an enterprise, and IBM is a great example, I want to connect to your data. Where's your data? Our data is everywhere. We have some divisions using Box. We've got SharePoint all over. We have network drives. And it's terabytes. It's terabytes of data. IBM Research is off kind of doing their own thing, and data's everywhere. And being able to work within an enterprise and be able to work with all the stakeholders and connect to that data and do the things that we need to do with it, because simply there hasn't been an ability to do that before.
Right.
And again, where IBM Ventures come in is the ability to navigate the massiveness that is IBM. So any founders
he's sitting
that are out
right there, Austin, and Emily
exactly
helps
right
with that as well. So
tremendous capability with your venture arm.
Cool. Well, I know we're at time, but I do want to open it up to any questions from the audience. If not, I have one more if we have time. No questions.
Good.
Going once? All right. What keeps you guys up at night? And other than Goju Tech Talks.
It's funny because a lot of venture people that were involved will sort of ask that question. What keeps you up at night, and what do you think about? And there's any number of things as a founder that are going to keep you up at night, right? The amount of grit and persistence and sheer will that's required throughout this entire journey, right? So it's spread across many different things. But one important thing that I would say is, number one, as startups are all new to this, right? The world of language models. When we were both doing research, and you're at Intel and I'm at the National Laboratories, the curve of technology innovation was somewhat predictable. Right. And it is completely gone now. One of the best stories I like to tell is very quick, but the first language model I built, I bought GPUs from a crypto startup that was going out of business. I tethered them all together in my basement where I lived in Minnesota and trained the model in the winter to heat my house. It was fantastic. And I was so proud of myself. And this was such a big part of our company. And then some lab replicated what I did. And my work was moot like 4 days after it finished training. It happens so fast. So being able to stay ahead of the curve is something I think about quite a bit.
I love it. And I feel very similarly. I think things are moving very fast, and in some sense, it's sort of yours and my fault, Stephen, as we're building AI companies to make it even faster. But to sort of dovetail off of yours, one of the folks that we work with very closely is Roger Primo at IBM. And it was right before our last board meeting. We were talking about the technical moat that Merle has, and because many of our technologies are proprietary and maybe considered one-offs, there might be this belief that we're sort of very different from the transformer space. But what Roger said, I think, really kind of hung with me, and what he said was, what makes an amazing company is not the tech, it's the people. And the more I think about it, the more I realize this is why I think your company will succeed, is you're at the helm. And I think part of the reason why Merle will succeed is we have people like Taylor. And I do think that technical moat will change over time. It'll get narrow, it'll get wide. But as long as you continue to have really incredible people that both are competent, but more importantly, they deeply care I think that my experience has been you'll be able to navigate those hard times.
Thanks for that, Goju. I can't think of a better note to finish on because as venture investors, it's all about the people. Yeah, the other stuff matters, but we start with the team, and you guys demonstrate passion and exactly what we look for. So thanks to both of you for the talk today. And with that, we're over time, and I think we'll wrap.